Hey gang, Casey Arndt here. I help triathlon swimmers swim faster, and today I have an exciting new, well, not totally new idea to share with you, but I have been reading a book this week that I wanted to share some principles with you from, and usually I've got on like long sleeves and stuff, and today I'm showing you my guns, and there's a reason. I want you to be able to see what my shoulders are doing. I'm going to demo for you a few things that you can do to get the most out of your swimming really quickly. So there are a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of different schools of thought about swimming that different triathletes have tried out. I'm sure all of you guys have watched your fair share of videos. And I wanted to share with you some ideas that come from Sheila Taormina's book, Swim Speed Secrets. And I've got a copy of it right here. Sorry, it's backwards. But this is a really interesting book. And in it, Sheila talks about the Pareto Principle, and the Pareto Principle you've probably heard of before. This is the idea that if you focus on 20% of the things that you could focus on, you're probably going to get 80% of the benefit. Sometimes people who are entrepreneurs like me might notice that 20% of their customers are giving them 80% of their business. Now, it's kind of the same idea in the water. All of us know how incredibly complicated swim technique is. Anybody who's tried to learn to swim as an adult is especially acquainted with this fact, and you know it's really complicated. There's a lot going on. It's hard to see, it's hard to feel, it's a really weird medium to be in. Humans are not naturally gifted at moving themselves in water like we are moving ourselves on land. So it's complicated. So if you can think of 10 things about your technique that you feel like probably need some work right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus that list of 10 things down onto one or two that are going to make the biggest difference, give you the biggest bang for your buck. And it's not to say that you're not ever going to work on those other 8 or 9 things, but if you focus most of your work in the water and even out of the water on that one or two, what Sheila says and what I also believe is that this is going to give you the biggest boost in your speed. Now, if your goal is not to be faster, if your goal is just to slowly swim at a constant speed as exercise late into your 80s and 90s, great. But if you want to be fast, there are some other things that you're going to have to add to your swim stroke, and you might not want to mess with if your goal is just to swim easy for a long time. All right, so let's get into it. So again, this Pareto Principle, it says that if you focus on 20% of it, you're going to get 80% of the benefit. Now, a lot of you who have started off as new swimmers, you know it's important to relax in the water. So I'm going to take that as a given, that you have already worked to relax. You have some very basic level of conditioning, and that those things are kind of out of the way. Now, when we talk about wanting to be fast in the water, a lot of people will think, well, my legs are really dragging. I really need to work on that first, and then maybe I can start to work on some of those more advanced things. So Sheila has this incredible example. So swimming has come a long way in the last 100 years. Back in the 20s, there was a guy named Johnny Weissmuller. He was the best of the best. He had never been beaten in a single swimming race in his entire life, and he set 67 world records at all distances. This guy could swim 100-meter freestyle in under 58 seconds. I've never done that. You've probably never done that. The guy was stinking fast. Now, here's the most incredible thing about his story. Johnny Weissmuller did not use goggles. Goggles actually not invented until the 1970s. He didn't even swim with his face in the water. You've probably seen those people at the gym who are swimming with their head out of the water and just stroking. Or maybe you've done something called the Tarzan drill, or even the water polo drill, where you swim with your arms coming out of the water, but your head is out of the water. Your chest is facing forward, your legs are hanging down. This is how Weissmuller swam. And he could swim 58 seconds for a 100-meter freestyle. Incredible. So now, fast forward into 2018, and the I think fairly current world record at this time for the 100-meter freestyle is about 46 seconds. So over the span of 100 years, the time has decreased by 20%. This is fascinating. So by adding in the other 80% of things that Johnny Weissmuller knew nothing about, like being level in the water, reducing drag, all those things, the time has improved by 20%. He already had something that made him very fast that just adding those few little extra things that he didn't know about just added a little bit of extra speed. So what did he know that so many of us don't know about? What that is a high elbow catch. So I can guarantee you, if you learned how to swim, not when you were 5 like I did, or even 10 years old, but if you started as an adult, you probably pressed down on the water with a straight arm. All right, so this is natural. It feels okay. It feels like you're doing some good work, and that's how a lot of people swim. But the reality is, the way that fast swimmers swim is they swim with a high elbow. And if you've had a lesson with me, if you've had a swim class with me, you know that I talk about early vertical forearm. All right, and that's the idea that instead of pressing down with a straight arm, you're going to keep your elbow up and hinge here to make this vertical forearm. Okay, so what Sheila adds is that she talks about the arm in terms of 2 levers, and I think this principle might be helpful to you guys. So I just wanted to talk about some geometry and then another kind of more touchy-feely concept, and then we'll get to some really practical things that you can do at home and at the pool today. All right, so stick with me. Here we go. So in terms of geometry, as you start your catch and pull, I want you to look at how my upper arm, and especially if I turn my body like I'm swimming, you can see how my shoulder is kind of pointing at my face. All right, so this upper lever, if we start here at full extension, as my elbow bends outward, my upper arm is going to point at my face. Now, if I push down with a straight arm, this shoulder doesn't come anywhere near here. But if I do this, you can see how it turns inward. Now this is going to require some strength in your deltoids. It's going to require some flexibility up in your upper back that you might not have right now. So I'm going to talk to you about a few things that you can do to introduce that and start to prepare your body for this kind of technique, not just for a 25 or a 50, but over a half mile or a full mile. It's going to take a little work to be able to do that. Now that's your first lever. The other geometrical part that we've got here is your hand sweeping back towards your body and getting into this more vertical position. And that's also very tricky. I've worked with lots of folks on trying to get that to work, and I will talk to you about some things that you can do both in the pool and out of the pool to help with that. Now, the other thing that Sheila makes very clear is that it's very important that you need to be extremely conscious as you're swimming. Even if you're swimming slowly or not really doing much, you could honestly just be standing in the water. You want to feel the water on your hand and on your forearm as it's extending and as it's starting to catch and push back. If you are spending that hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is in the water, and you're thinking a lot about what do I feel on my hand? What do I feel here? What do I feel on my wrist? As you're in this vertical forearm position, this whole surface should be in touch with the water, and it needs to have what she calls tone. All right, so you don't want your wrist to be floppy. You don't want it to be bent like so. You don't want to have your hand really tight, but also shouldn't be splayed open or just kind of floppy. All right, if we think of tone, it's not rigid, but it's also not floppy at all. So it's got some tension in it, but it's a little bit more relaxed than that. But it's just more on, okay? So you think about, and when you hold good posture, you think about your core being on, all right? It's that same idea here. So as you're doing this, you want to be aware of how your forearm here in this early vertical forearm position is interacting with the water. Even as you extend forward under the surface of the water, as you're reaching forward and your hip is rotating, you want to be concentrating on how your arm is interacting. So don't just throw your arm in the water and just start to pull and not be paying attention to what's happening out there. You want to really be focusing on how you're grabbing. As Johnny Weissmuller said, you're putting some purchase on the water. You're starting to interact with it and really get a feel for it. Grab onto that water and push it all the way back to your hip. All right, so that's really the two concepts that I wanted to talk to you about. The geometry of your arm, the upper arm, the lower arm, and then the feel for the water. So how are you going to put this into motion in your own swimming today? If you have a stretch cord at home, here's an example. my old favorite right here. You can wrap this around a doorknob. You can wrap it around a pole at the pool, like the backstroke flags, anything like that. And you can use that resistance to pull back on that cord and start to build some strength and flexibility in your upper arm out of the pool deck, out of the pool, either at the pool deck or at home. You can do that at home. And I also have an additional tool that I have in here at home, which is a Vasa ergometer, which is kind of a swim bench, and it has the halo adapter. So what this allows me to do is put you on the swim bench and get you to swim so that you are forced to swim with this high elbow position, because if you don't, basically going to smash into this plastic thing, and it forces you to swim correctly. And so if you've got a stretch cord on your own that you're using, you don't really have that kind of feedback, and it can be a little trickier to learn this technique off the bat. So if you would like to have a spin on the Vasa ergometer and start to pattern this type of technique yourself, you can definitely shoot me a note either here on Facebook or by email, and I can get you in here into my home studio to try that out, which will help you set up for better technique work at home. And Sheila recommends starting simple. You're just going to do 3 to 8 times, setting up, making sure that your technique looks good, and then pushing through. 3 sets of 8 per arm, and that's it. It's not a lot, and you can do that 3 times a week. And you're going to start to increase flexibility. Now, in the water, what can you do to set up this geometry? Well, the first thing that Sheila recommends is that you really focus on a good streamline. All right, so in a good streamline, you're going to have your hands overlapped, and you're going to be squeezing your head like so. All right, competitive swimmers do this off every wall. Triathletes, often they actively avoid it. And what's going on here is again, this idea of tone. So you're squeezing your head hard, you're paying attention to where am I feeling drag, how am I slipping through the water, how is the water moving over my body surfaces. You've got this stretch through your core, which you could make it feel like you're adding 3 inches to your height even. And this is all very important. You're gaining flexibility in your upper body, you're gaining strength in your upper body. You're starting to be really aware of how your body moves in the water even as you're just pushing off the wall. All right, so the streamline, the stretch cord work, this is all going to start to add strength and flexibility in your upper body so that you can make this work for you if this is a difficult position to get into. All right, so what else can you do? You want to increase your feel for the water. So my recommendation is whatever you're doing, just swim more mindfully. Start to think about parts of your arms or hands and how they're interacting with the water. So it could be, how are you holding your fingers? Are they really stiff? Are they just too flexible? And are you really feeling some catch on the water with your hand? You can also do some great sculling drills. Sculling drills are things that I teach to almost everyone that I work with. And as you're sculling, your upper arm is staying completely just in the same place. Nothing's going on here, but you're just swiveling your hands in and out, pushing on the water, all right? And as you're doing that, you want to be thinking about, how am I interacting with the water? How is it pushing in and out? Seriously, you can do this just standing in the water. You don't even have to be swimming. Just push in and out. How can I move the water around? How can I be friends with the water and make it do what I want it to do? This is all really great feel for the water. And you can also be working on the geometric things that we talked about as well. So you don't want to just get awesome at doing these swim cord drills. You really want to be able to take this same geometry and put it to work for you in the water. Swimming with one arm can be really helpful for this. Just slow it down, put some fins on, and just slow everything way down so you don't have to be at your regular cadence. You're just watching to see what your elbow is doing, what your upper arm is doing, what your hand is doing as you start to catch the water here in front of your head where you can see what's going on. So, all right, so let's boil that down. If you're gonna swim twice, maybe 3 times, you're gonna incorporate some sculling drills. You're gonna incorporate streamlining. You could even just do a little set of 10 streamlines off the wall. Streamline out for about 2 to 5 seconds, swim back, do it again, and really focus on putting all this tone into your your core and your arms and really work in the streamlines to start to build this flexibility. You're gonna, sculling, streamlining, and just being a little bit more aware of how your hand and your arm are moving through the water at the front of your stroke and as you start to catch. Outside of the pool, again, 3 sets of 8 reps with the stretch cord, making sure you're checking that you're not just pushing down on the water or that you're just pulling here. You can see that my upper arm does not look the same as I pull back like that as it does when I catch here. So how that looks, that's what you're looking for, not this, not pushing down. All right, hopefully you guys can see the difference there. Do it in the mirror, check it out on yourself where you can see your shoulders and try to get that geometry to work for you. And using the stretch cord is gonna add some flexibility. It's gonna, and strength. It's gonna make it harder to do. You know, your shoulders might burn a little bit trying to get into this position, but man, the payoff is gonna be really huge. So stick with that for a week or 2, and then you can start to increase the amount. And again, if you want me to walk through with you, if you're doing it right, just how to do it, how to do sculling drills in the water. If you want to take a spin on the Vasa, definitely shoot me a message and I will help you out, because I really believe that no matter where you are, if you're starting as a 2-minute and 30-second 100 yards, if you're all the way down to 145 for 100 yards, anywhere in between, this is really going to benefit you and make you stronger. This is the bang for the buck you've been looking for. All the other stuff, it's still important. You know, alignment, body position, hip rotation, all of those things are important, but what is going to make you fast? What's going to make you fast is to have this great pull. So I hope you learned something helpful. I'll see you guys next week. Take care.